This screen capture is going to demonstrate how we can leverage Institute on Aging's remote desktop services infrastructure to also update user passwords. So the remote desktop, or the new remote desktop server, is uh, basically a replacement for ts.ioaging.org for typical business applications like the Microsoft Office 365 apps and Outlook, and also for file access to common file shares, the Y drive, for example. But we can also address certain infrequent tasks such as password resets. So users who might not be in an IOA office and not connected to an office network, if they're suddenly presented with a need to update their password, so for example at the end of a typical 90-day password expiry period, then the user can actually leverage the new remote desktop services infrastructure. So let's demonstrate this. And for the first, there are two use cases. One is when a user's password has expired and needs to be changed. So again, for users who are not already on an Office network, in which case they can just use their Windows computer on the network to reset their password, they can log into the web access server and do a password update from there. So let's log in. So we log into https://rds.ioaging.org, and let's log in as ourselves. And notice upon login, even though I entered a valid username and password combination, I wasn't redirected to the Duo multi-factor authentication prompt. I was instead informed that my password has expired, and then I'm given the option to change it from here. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's enter in our old password. Let me re-enter that. And let me also enter in my new password and confirm it. And then we'll click submit. Now I have run into situations where this web form submission is actually taking quite a long time. So we'll let it sit and spin for a little bit. Okay, it looks like in my case I didn't choose a valid password. Let's see what we can do about that. All right, let's try this one. let it sit and spin. Okay, so successfully changed. Good. And let's click OK. And we can try it out. And this time, if my password is accepted, I should be brought to the multi-factor authentication screen. And here you just proceed as normal. So I'm going to actually log in because we do need to proceed to the remote desktop server to do the second use case. All right, so the web access server, the https://rds.ioaging.org, that can be used to change an expired password. But there might be situations in which you might want to proactively change your password. So, for example, before you go on a long business trip, you might want to change your password so that you will not be prompted during the trip for a password change, because from password reset, from that point in time, there will be you won't be required to change your password for another 90 days. So let's give this a shot. Let's try to log in to the remote desktop. We're going to have to go through another multi-factor authentication prompt. Okay, so when you are on an IOA Office network and you have an assigned work computer, an IOA issued computer, then you could basically use the Windows computer to change your password. You do the what we call in the IT biz the three-finger salute, Control Alt Delete to get to the security options screen, and then from there you choose the change of password link. Um, when you are on a remote desktop, you can't press Control Alt Delete by default because that'll actually not be recognized by the remote desktop. It'll be recognized by your local desktop. So that's not what we want. So what we can do instead, though, is use a virtual keyboard. So on the new RDS server's desktop and available to all users by default, you should see an icon for the on-screen keyboard. So go ahead and launch that. Now, if I were to hit Control Alt Delete right now, what this will do is actually show the Control Alt Delete screen for my local computer, not the remote computer. What we want though is Control Alt Delete on the remote desktop. So to do that, once the on-screen keyboard is up, press the Control and Alt keys on your physical keyboard. Those should be reflected on the on-screen keyboard. And then using the mouse, click on the Delete key. So that basically brings up the Control Alt Delete screen for the remote desktop. Now here we can use the change of password prompt, and we could basically do what we just did on the web access form, but we're doing it proactively before the password is expired. So here we'd enter in the old password, enter in the new password, confirm the new password, then proceed. And if it's accepted, you're brought back to the main desktop. And those are the two scenarios. So when you're not in the IOA office or connected to an IOA office network and you find yourself in need of a password change, this is one way to do it. One thing to note though, once you change your password via the remote desktop or the web access server, that will change it for your um, that will actually change it on the IOA Office network, and within 30 minutes, it'll propagate to Office 365. However, if you're out of the office, your IOA issued work computer will still actually respond and recognize your old password. So until you can connect your work PC back onto an IOA network, it won't be able to synchronize with these new passwords. The new password will basically just be for the remote desktop and for the web access server and for Office 365. But you'll still also need to remember your old password for your work issued, your IOA issued computer, at least until you can connect to an Office network. And those are the scenarios. If you run into situations where you do have password difficulty or login difficulty, please do contact Intivix for assistance.